E aku rangatira tēnā koutou katoa, tēnā koutou e te ihi, tēnā koutou e te wihi, tēnā koutou e te wana, tēnā koutou e te mana, tēnā koutou e te tapu, tēnā koutou katoa. Nā mahiki a koutou nā whānau, nā mana whenua o te Aotearoa. Talofa lava, malayo lele, welcomes and greetings to you all. To start with karakia, a prayer. Whiti ora ki te whea au, ki te ao marama. Whiti ki runga, whiti ki raro. E nui nui ki te pohatu, e nui nui ki te rākau. Ti taha ki tēnai taha, ti taha ki tira taha. Ti hei mōri ora. Cross over to life in the changing world, in the world of light and understanding. Cross upwards, cross downwards. Turn to the rock, turn to the tree. Leaning to this side, leaning to that side. Sneeze forth the breath of life. Amen. Amen. I thought I would start. I'm Denise Cosgrove. I'm the chair of the Health Benefits of Good Work New Zealand Signatory Steering Group, and so I'm delighted that you're all here today. It's interesting everyone spreads out all around the room, but luckily we have the sound technology. Not quite sure we have the visual technology yet, but we'll work our way through that. I thought I'd start with just sharing a little whakatoki, which is a proverb for those of you from Australia who are joining us. And it's ko mahi, ko ora. By work we prosper, i.e. by working we sustain ourselves. Now typically that's been taken to mean about, wealth creation. But actually work is a very self-sustaining activity, and that's what we're here today to talk about, is the value and benefit of good work. Not sure I need that one yet, but that's okay. So before we start, let's just do our health and wellbeing so that you can enjoy this session. So clearly we've got exits upstairs and downstairs, and the facilities are literally around the corner from here. We will be providing you with a break so that you can have a cup of tea. And there's no immediate hazards other than the fact that there's no handrail coming down the stairs, which in stilettos was actually quite difficult. So I would encourage you to be careful in doing that. And I think everything else, the room is well serviced by its owners to make sure that it addresses our health, safety and wellbeing. There might be the occasional person taking a photo, so if you don't want your photo there, I'm sure you'll look the other way if you see anyone directing a camera in your direction. I would really like to thank our sponsors, so University of Otago, AIA and Fit for Work. So thank you guys for making this possible. And I'd definitely like to thank our very tireless forum organising committee, but most especially to Peter over here, who has done an admirable job from a distance. So we really, really appreciate that. But to all the others who've helped, and to Suzanne particularly for the work that you do in the scenes, behind the scenes. So the sessions today are really intended to be interactive, practical, pragmatic opportunities for questions and answers. We're going to hear the speakers, have a few questions, maybe only one or two at that point, because then at the end they'll all come along and we can have a bit of a panel discussion. So save up your questions, other than maybe just one or two at the end of them. So I'd like to hand over very briefly to Rob Griffiths, who is the Program Director of Occupational and Aviation Medicine. I thought that's quite an interesting combination here at Otago University. So Rob, you'd like to welcome me.
This will just take 2 minutes, unlike most of my usual speeches. I'd just like to, on behalf of the University of Otago, Wellington, I'd like to welcome you to the Nordmeyer Theatre. Arnold Nordmeyer was the leader of the Labour Party, mostly in opposition in the 50s, and was Minister of Health and Minister of Industries at the same time. He was actually responsible for introducing a lot to do with our welfare state. And I think that he would have been very pleased for this this meeting to have been held here. And I really wish you well for this particular meeting. One last thing from a hazards point of view, one that's not present or not visible at the moment, is just to remind you to drop, cover and hold if we do have an earthquake. You're in the safest place in the building, and I think that staying exactly where you are and hanging onto your chair before you depart from it would be the safest thing to do if we do have a big one. So welcome and thank you. And thank you.
Kia ora, thank you, Rob. I forgot about that in Wellington, though yesterday flying in was quite interesting. It's been a while since I've come in sideways. So now let's get started. So first up we have Dr. David Beaumont, who is very esteemed. You've had his bio in front of you, so I won't go through that. But David now runs an organisation called Fit for Work. Plus he was previous chair of the Health Benefits Good Work New Zealand Signatory Steering Group. He's got an esteemed background. But David, you're going to talk to us about the progression towards and the focus on moving away from the initial concepts of the importance of health to wellbeing to actually the importance of good work. So we invite you up.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Peter. Perfect timing. Technology scares me, and it's wonderful to have somebody who will fiddle for us. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Welcome to us all, and particularly welcome to those of you who have travelled from Australia specifically for this event. And that also includes the CEO of the Royal Australasian College of Physicians, Dwayne Finlay. Thank you for coming, Dwayne, as well. When I first started talking about the health benefits of work, people used to laugh. They weren't laughing at me. They honestly thought I was making a joke. Work good for health. Yeah, that's a really good one. But actually, we've come a long way since then. And the influence of the campaign has spread throughout both New Zealand and Australia, which is why, hence the attendance of the Australian signatory steering group here as well. What I want to do today is to talk to you briefly about the why. Why is this important, and how important is it? And if so, what is it that we need to do together? I'm going to do that by sharing with you another campaign which has recently been introduced by the RACP called Make It the Norm. But before I do that, I just want to have a look at some milestones along the way. So in 2006, Gordon Waddell and Kim Burton looked at the international evidence to address the question, is work good for our health and well-being? And they looked at the quality of the evidence, and the evidence is a resounding yes, absolutely it is. There followed the review conducted by Dame Carol Black in the UK on the health of the UK's working age population. And Dame Carol Black said, we're getting it wrong. We let people go off work, and then we spend £100 billion a year to pay them to stay at home. What are we doing to get them back to work? Do you know what? Pretty much nothing. But we're getting it wrong right from the start. When they go to see their GP, they get a sick note. They're labelled sick. We need to change attitudes. We need to look at capacity for work. We need a fit note. And we occupational physicians in the Australasian Faculty of Occupational Environmental Medicine said, well, hang on a sec, this is our domain. We are the specialists in the health of workers. We need to do a project on behalf of the college to actually put out a position statement which became called Realising the Health Benefits of Work. That position statement led to wider discussions with the various stakeholders who have a vested interest in this, and that became the New Zealand Consensus Statement on the Health Benefits of Work, and indeed the Australian Consensus Statement as well. And that was actually launched by Dame Carol Black here in Wellington in March 2011. In that presentation, Dame Carol made it absolutely clear that a fundamental role within making this work was doctors. She actually said, do you know what? We're getting it wrong. We've got to change our thinking. We've got to change our practice. We've got to stop seeing the necessity to be 100% fit to go back to work, And we've got to actually see return to work as being therapeutic and indeed a clinical goal. Later, it was Dame Carol Black, who has kept in touch with us over the years. Dame Carol Black said, do you know what? You need to change your focus to good work. The international evidence is now becoming clear. Bad work is worse for people than no work at all. It has got to be good work. And so then the title of the consensus statement has been changed to being the health benefits of good work. And what is it? It is a shared commitment to improve the health and well-being of individuals, families, and communities. But it's going to take a transformation in both thought and practice and cooperation between the many different stakeholders who have a vested interest in this. And therefore, we went to all of these groups and we talked to employers and workers and unions and government and healthcare professionals and insurers, and we found a resounding agreement that everybody could see what was in it for them. Everybody had an interest that we got this right collectively. And it actually took us 6 months from start to finish to develop the consensus statement and get all of these signatories on board. And this list is the most up-to-date list, so the list has actually continued to grow. I'm going to say in Australia, they've put a lot of effort into increasing the number of signatories, which is at least twice as big as this. For myself and a number of my colleagues within the College of Physicians, we had a seminal moment in RACP Congress 2 years ago. The closing plenary was delivered by Sir Harry Burns, who was the Chief Medical Officer for Scotland. He's a professor of global public health. And he was to talk on the biology of poverty and social chaos. But he started his talk by saying, do you know what? When I was putting together my talk last night, I realized I had to change the title of my talk. And he changed the title of his talk to How Doctors Can Change the World. And what he said was, do you know what? Doctors are not doing enough to change the world. Doctors are not doing enough to influence health. We are the proverbial ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. When things go wrong, we try our best to put them right, or to get as close to right as we can. We've got to move upstream. We've got to move into the preventative sphere. More importantly, we've collectively, as doctors, got to help address the social determinants of health. And to do that, we need to develop new roles. We need to develop advocacy roles, and we need to change practice. We need to change the way we work. The World Health Organization defines the social determinants of health as the conditions in which people are born, grow, work, live, and age, and the factors which impact on our daily lives. Not their daily lives, our daily lives, because the social determinants of health affect every single one of us. There is a temptation to think about the social determinants of health referring to the lower socioeconomic strata. Absolutely it does, because they are the worst affected. But interestingly, Sir Michael Marmot, in the Whitehall studies, identified that it is a completely straight line graph. The more you improve your social standing in all of these different domains, the better your health is, right up to the very top. Yes, we've got to think about everybody at the bottom of the strata, but we've got to recognize that this affects all of us. This set off a number of different discussions within our college and led to a desire to have an election statement last year. So this was August 2017, and the campaign was called Make It the Norm. And what we agreed was that if we were going to influence the social determinants of health, it wasn't good enough just to say things are really bad and should be better. we had to provide leadership. We had to identify the areas where we could make change, and we had to put a positive spin on it, and we had to be able to make recommendations as to what needed to happen. And the three areas that we picked to focus on were work, housing, and whānau. For the Australian contingent, that's family. In fact, it's bigger than family. It's the wider family. And we decided to focus on good work, healthy housing, and whānau well-being. Why make it the norm? Well, actually, the question should be, why is good work, healthy housing, and whānau well-being not the norm for so many people in Aotearoa, New Zealand? Part of it is also a play on words from an amazingly inspirational quote from then Prime Minister Norman Kirk, who said, "People don't want much, just someone to love, somewhere to live, somewhere to work, and something to hope for." He's talking about the social determinants of health. He's talking about good work, healthy housing, whānau well-being. So that was the inspiration for the title and the hashtag Make It the Norm, which has continued from that time, and I want to tell you how it's going to escalate from here. We decided to map out what the problems were, and I just want to draw your attention to the intersection of these Venn diagrams, where the point where if we get it right, we make a huge difference. If we get it right, we get whānau ora, healthy families, family health, and we also get health equity. We get people being treated the same in terms of their health needs. I would just like to point out that this amazing piece of artwork, this infographic, is courtesy of Harriet Wild, who's Senior Policy Officer at the college. Thank you very much, Harriet, for your amazing artistic work, pulling all of this together. So we had to simplify, and we decided to simplify with some case studies. Stories are very powerful. We all relate to stories, mainly because we all have our own story. Just want to focus today on Brian, because Brian is working age population. He's the figurehead of his family, but we mapped out the stories, and within the campaign, we told the stories of each of those members of the family. And these are the stories that we mapped out. They're real stories. They're actually combinations of different cases that all of the physicians on the New Zealand committee had encountered, but they're all real stories. Bottom right is our Brian. And here's Brian, 48 years old, lives with his extended whānau in an overcrowded house. More stress, angry confrontations within the family. He's depressed. He's not actually been diagnosed, but he is depressed. He's a lifelong tobacco smoker, and he's got COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, without doubt in relation to his lifelong cigarette smoking, but also actually, as it turns out, in relation to his exposures to dust and fume within his factory workplace. That's not good work. That's the first tier in the hierarchy of control. That is, first do no harm. He's actually been actively harmed by his work. Well, at least he was being actively harmed by his work until he lost his job, and he's not been able to find another job. And yeah, alcohol kind of dulls things for him. As doctors, how can we impact on his health? Well, actually, he goes to see his GP, and he's on a couple of different inhalers for his COPD. When he gets a bit wheezy and when he gets a cough, or he might need antibiotics. His depression hasn't actually been picked up by his GP, and if it was, he could be put on antidepressants. How much is that going to impact on his health? Bugger all, actually. And that is the extent that the medical profession is helping this guy currently. So we looked at what success might look like. We looked at how have these factors all interplay, and it was absolutely clear that in terms of addressing the social determinants of health, good work is way up there in terms of how we improve the health of Brian and his whole family, improve their social standing, improve their health. The campaign was launched on the 10th of August 2017. It was sent to all political parties. This is apolitical. This is what we need to do in New Zealand. This is what we need to look for to our government. And we challenged all of the political parties to take on board these messages. And they did. They engaged with us. They responded really well, but so did the media. And we actually got very good media coverage from the media releases that we sent out. And again, the college staff worked tirelessly to get the messages out, to tweet about it, to use social media. And it had a tremendous impact. We calculated that it actually reached about 10% of New Zealand's population. And how many tweets did we send out? A lot of tweets went out. And we got a lot of response. Gratifying for us was the response that we got from our own membership, our own doctors, who actually recognized the need for change. They recognized the need for advocacy. They recognized the need for change in practice. And I just want to draw your attention to this one. So proud to be a doctor today. So proud of the RACP, keeping the conversation up. And we are keeping the conversation up. We are talking about this. The government has just had its first anniversary, and we're going to provide a temperature check for each of these areas. What's happened in the first 12 months of government? What are we doing that's right? What are we doing to achieve these lofty goals of good work, healthy housing? Healthy housing, family well-being. What are we doing? So our New Zealand president, Jeff Brown, is actually speaking today at the Paediatric Society of New Zealand conference in Nelson. He's talking about the pediatric perspective. His case study is that young Amy and the impact this has on her and the need for pediatricians to step up and move into this space as well. Just want to talk about one of my roles within the college is that I'm Congress Lead Fellow, so I'm responsible for planning the program for our Congress, our annual conference. And that next year is going to be in Auckland, and the title is Impacting Health Along the Life Course. Throughout the life of that family, of Brian's family, every stage along the way, we've got to impact health. And we're going to use Make It the Norm to promote some of the concepts. One of the things I really want to draw your attention to is that health is no longer having normal blood pressure, normal cholesterol, normal blood sugar. Health is about having health in every domain of your life. Physical, psychological, family or emotional, whānau, and spiritual health. And that's absolutely the model that was developed by Sir Mason Jury in 1984, the Maori model of health, Te Whare Tapa Whā, the four walls of the House of Health. I spoke to Sir Mason last week and asked if he would present at Congress. And he said, well, what's it going to be about? What's it going to be like? And I told him some of the concepts that we were having, and he said, I'm in. I'd love to do it. So Sir Mason Jury is delivering the opening keynote at our Congress next year. So, key messages. The signatories to the consensus statement have signed up to a shared commitment to improve the health and well-being of individuals, Brian's family, and other families like him and their communities through good work. But to do this, we need to change. We need to transform the way we think about work and good work, and we need to change our practice. I've talked about doctors, but of course, that's just because that's what I know best. But doctors need to change. We need to develop this advocacy role. I'm absolutely proud to be part of the role that the RACP is playing in advocacy now. That's new. That's new in the last 10 years. And it continues to escalate. But it needs to go further. And individually as doctors, we need to move beyond the traditional medical model that focuses on the physical to more holistic models of practice, which we are starting to develop. There are lots of different stakeholders represented in this audience. We come from all of these different sectors. We can only do this together. We can only do this through collaboration. What I challenge you to do is to think now, what can I do? What can I do as an individual? What can I do within my organization? What can we achieve to move this forward? And I know that you're all in positions of influence that you can do that. What can we as a sector do towards this? What can the insurance sector do towards this? The healthcare sector, employers, unions, and how do we work together to achieve that? We're on a journey. I've been on this journey for 8 years, and interestingly, I know that there are people in this audience who've been with us on that journey. Come and join us in the journey. Find out what it means. Let's work together on this. If you're not already a signatory, become a signatory. Thank you very much.
Before David leaves, we do have an opportunity if anyone wants to ask a couple of questions around the making it the norm, or any other concepts that David has shared. So we just invite you all, put your hand up the usual traditional way and use a loud voice up there.
Yeah. I kind of alluded to the first stage of that with Brian being harmed by his work. WorkSafe in New Zealand announced their 10-year occupational health strategy a couple of years back now, and they gave us a hierarchy, which is, first of all, health protection, then health promotion, then health and well-being. The first thing you've got to do is make sure you're not harming your workers. Too many of New Zealand's workers are being killed by their work, but way more are developing work-related diseases. And it's those that we've got to identify and stop. But there's far more that's happening, and WorkSafe are concerned about how they get into the psychosocial harm space, the mental harm that's done at work, by condoning bullying and harassment. And there are too many sectors, including the hospitality sector, the healthcare sector, where bullying and harassment is incredibly prevalent. So we've got to change work practices. I think we're only just scratching the surface in terms of our understanding of the degree of psychosocial risk that there is out there. And I think other countries are ahead of us in terms of understanding and managing those risks. But it's a massive issue. And it's actually a major issue that employers are now starting to talk to us about and ask about. Sorry. Yeah, that's a really good point, and it's a really good question. So within our own company, Fit for Work, we have a truly multidisciplinary team. We have doctors, nurses, occupational therapists, physiotherapists, vocational consultants, psychologists, and I'm talking to the whole of our team about a new model of holistic medical practice. And they're saying to me, yeah, but this is what we were trained in. This is what we do. Marissa's an occupational therapist, and she says, yeah, this is my bread and butter. This is what I do. This is not new for doctors. Sorry, this is new for doctors. My generation were absolutely not taught about the biopsychosocial model, for instance. So what we're working on now is not being a multidisciplinary team. We're working on being an interdisciplinary team so that we know and understand each other's strengths, and we know when to cross-refer and work together. So that is the challenge, how we work together on this. Gillian, I saw your hand up as well. The top of... Yeah. Yeah, okay. In all honesty, Gillian, thank you for that challenging question. I'm going to say it. I'm at the top. And you guys are at the top. I don't mean the top in terms of influence. I mean the top of the social strata. We're up there. I'm up there. Is my health perfect? Hell no. Am I doing something about it? Absolutely. So I have my own whole life health plan. And I do work in terms of my physical, psychological, emotional, and spiritual factors to try and improve that. But there is lots more I can do. So it's that gradient, and where we picture ourselves on that gradient. I mean, yeah, sure, there's people higher up than me, but the fact is that we can all benefit. Therefore, we've all got responsibility to make this happen, but we've also got responsibility to the people at the bottom who aren't getting what they need. They're not getting what they need because of the inverse care law. The inverse care law says that more healthcare goes to people who don't need it as much as those who do need it, who get less and less and less. And that's health inequity. What we're aiming for is health equity.
Well, we'll hold more questions for David until later and move on. And I think you raised some really, really great thoughts. And I've been in and out of this journey over the last however many years it has been from a range of different perspectives. So I've been both a government / insurer / whatever employer, and I'm almost on another side now, which is running a social services organisation in New Zealand. But the issues are the same. And potentially we're dealing with people in those areas of greatest need where inequality exists on a range of variables. And it just reinforced on a daily basis, you cannot deal with one part of a person without dealing with the holistic all. So I think it's really important. And a great segue, one of your questions around nurses was to lead us into our guest speaker, Professor Anne Harris, who says outside, I'm Anne, not Professor. And you've driven the development of OC health and education and practice, both locally in the UK, nationally and internationally. And in fact, you've been called on many times to speak in lots of places and to help design standards and review things. Very award-winning. But a significant influence. So one of the things I read on your bio was that your whole focus as an educator is around student-centred and practice-oriented. So coming to your question around what does this actually mean, today is about the practical dimensions of it. We'll learn from Anne about the underlying concepts, the evidence, the practice. We've got other speakers today who are going to talk about what does good work actually look like, and those psychosocial dimensions. What do we mean by that, and what are the roles that we can all play in that? So, Anne, thank you.
Before you go, can you check with the IT guy that there's some links I want to play later on. If they work, they work. If they don't, it doesn't matter.
Right. Rob, do you know that Peter had just slipped out that way? But why don't you
I'll start.
And then we have that sort of pregnant pause. We'll navigate our way through.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to come and speak. It's just fantastic to be able to come and speak in New Zealand. Several of my graduates have come to work in New Zealand. Many of them are Kiwis, and they've seen the light and come back home. Sorry, is that better? Yeah, I can hear it is better now. Okay, so I'm going to talk about good work, what it is, what it looks like, and what the benefits are. So one of my hobbies is going to look at amusing birthday cards and similar at one of our local department stores. I spend a fortune there, and I quite like this one because it shows a picture of a guy looking rather glum, and he's thinking, work isn't so bad, but it does tend to ruin my day. My argument is, but that shouldn't be the case. I go to work to have a good time, and I go to work for social interaction. I go to work because it gives me a sense of value that I've done something good. So work and the workplace should enhance, and it shouldn't detract from the quality of life. You mentioned, David, about Wood Allen Burton's work. Is work good for your health and well-being? Well, it is, as long as it's good work. Work is central to our identity. If anybody asks me what my job is, I'm very proud to say I'm an occupational health nurse. Well, depending on who that person is that asks me what my job is, they either look at me and think that I'm an occupational therapist, and then I go and give them a bit of brainwashing. It acknowledges that physical and psychosocial aspects of work can pose a risk to health, however. So it's got to be good work. But employment is better for health than unemployment, as David's already said. Employment and socio-economic status are the main drivers of inequalities of health. I don't have the authors. Can you get me some water? I don't have the authors, but I'd commend a couple of books to you. One is called The Spirit Level, and the other one is Status Syndrome. And they both talk about these social determinants of health. So employment and socio-economic status are the main drivers of inequalities. And health improvement will only result from a move into work and off social security benefits. Some of you will be familiar with this. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's all about motivation. So the basic needs we all need are physiological needs. So clean air, hydration, which I think I'm in a bit of need of at the moment, nutrition and warmth. Then safety and protection. In other words, health and safety, if we're talking about the workplace. Getting up higher up that pyramid is belonging, relationships. And you've already mentioned, David, about relationships at home. It's also relationships at work. And it was so interesting that you picked up about bullying and harassment. Big problem. Employers sometimes tend to sort of cover it up. They don't think about how they can deal with those sorts of issues. Very important. People will go off work because they're being bullied. It causes stress. Getting up higher up that hierarchy is self-esteem. And then self-actualization. In other words, you've made it and you're really proud of what you do. So work isn't just about how much you get paid. And you can have a very well-remunerated job that doesn't actually give you anything when you go home at the end of the day to think, I've done a good job. My husband's an architect, and I move in with a lot of architects, and some of them come home and they think, actually, I've worked my socks off today, but I'm so stressed. Thank you. Excuse me, let me just have a quick drink. And they're making a fortune. But that money isn't any good to them because they don't have the time to enjoy it. What is interesting talking to New Zealanders is that the work-life balance is really important, and that is part of health. So effective hazard control in the workplace, including things like workplace stress, ergonomics of the workplace, manual handling. How many of your workers end up at the end of the day with painful shoulders, necks, back, risks? They could be changed by doing some ergonomic risk assessments. Working at heights. I'm horrified when one of my students was telling me about somebody that had been working on scaffolding and fell off the top. Spinal injury, that was the end of his job. A job may be very well paid, but associated with significant health ill effects or high levels of dangers. Many employers will actually just throw money at it. If we pay people enough money, they'll take those risks. And I don't believe that's actually the right way. So here's some pictures of workplace hazards. We look at the aircraft on the left-hand side. Those people are loading or unloading baggage onto the aircraft. They're exposed to high levels of noise, vehicle movements, extreme weather conditions, slippery floor surfaces in the wet or the snow. difficult to be able to control for the weather. I was looking forward to a nice summer day here in Wellington, and I got what it's probably like in the UK. You can't control for that, but you can do risk assessments. The man on the right is sanding a floor. He's moving and handling heavy equipment, floor sanding, exposed to noise. Can't see any PPE that he's wearing, personal protective equipment. He's exposed to vibration and hardwood dusts. Hardwood dusts are associated with cancer of the nose, amongst other things. These are the hands of some construction workers. The person on the left, you can see the ends of his fingers are white. That's because of the effect of vibration. And the people that are working in those industries often don't think of the repercussions. If they're working in an industry where they've got no access to occupational health, they just take it as part and parcel of the job. I know you get a lot of our English television programmes here, because I've seen television last night and saw that Coronation Street's on this evening. There's a gardening programme, and a group of gardeners go and improve a house for somebody that's got a disability. And one of the gardeners commented about his fingers being numb and white. And one of the producers said, "Oh, just get on with your work then." What they didn't realise is that man had got hand-arm vibration syndrome. The person on the right has got very bad dermatitis, again linked in with the job that he's doing. Now, if they'd done an appropriate risk assessment and had health protection and health promotion in those workplaces, those conditions should be reduced and hopefully completely removed. Stress and mental health. Big problem in the UK at the moment is stress amongst healthcare workers. And the man on the left is a doctor suffering from stress and burnout within healthcare. Now, it's not just about his health as a result of his stress, but it's also the health of his patients. Because if he's stressed and not able to function properly, and then somebody comes in to A&E, he's got to deal with them, they might not get the best care. And the lady on the right, home working, juggling work and family, all sorts of responsibilities. They may not just have childcare responsibilities. Certainly in the UK, we've got an ageing workforce, and I gather it's the same here in New Zealand. As people get older, they may be looking after their grandchildren, but they might also be looking after their elder parents. So it's a bit like being the jam in the middle of a sandwich. So, good work. The Taylor Review of Modern Working Practices that came out last year. And I really like this quotation, which came from the CIPD, the Chartered Institute for Personnel and Development. Employers have a major role to play in improving outcomes for workers through good workplace practice. Work should provide us all with the opportunity to fulfill our own needs and potential in ways that suit our situation throughout our life. To me, that epitomises what good work is, that I can play a part in improving my own workplace and that I can come home from work and think I've done a good job. Mental health in the UK is becoming more and more of a problem. In fact, now there's a move to have something called mental health first aiders. More than 500,000 workers are affected by work-related stress, anxiety or depression. And that's come from our health and safety executive. And I've no doubt that there's going to be similar kind of background in New Zealand. A loss of over 12.5 million working days were due to mental ill health. Stress is one of the main concerns raised by half of public sector workers. So who are we talking about? Healthcare, education, fire service, police, ambulance service. From the HSE statistics, 57% of absences are due to stress, depression, or anxiety. Well, that ain't a good job if it's work-related. And going back to what employers can do is to think about what policies they have. Have they got diversity policies? Have they got mental health policies? Have they got alcohol and substance misuse policies? So what kind of workplace stressors are we referring to? Well, first of all, within a job, has that worker got high job demands, but very poor job control. What's their role like? Do they know exactly what their job is? Or do they get told off because they're not doing their job properly, but they don't know what they're doing wrong? One of our friends is an engineer, and he was saying that he's the one with the stress in his organisation. He proved it by banging the table. Very much a type A person. These people on the shop floor, they don't have stress. Well, actually, I think they do. They've no job control. They've no choice over what they do. They're working in very uncomfortable working conditions on construction sites, in the cold, the wet, noisy. He had no concept what his workers were going through. What about public interface with aggressive customers? So customers that will say, as far as a customer is concerned, it could be a consumer of healthcare. They don't like what they're given or not given, and then they start getting aggressive. In the news last week in the UK was a nurse who'd been beaten up by a patient, and she'd been held hostage in a room. Frightening. I was at a conference 2 years ago in the States where they were talking about lockdowns, and they were asking the nurses in the audience how many of them had been involved in lockdowns in their hospital. And I think I was the only one that hadn't. Scary. That will come to the UK, and eventually it will come here, I'm sure. Unsupportive or ineffective managers. How many managers are actually taught to manage? Often you either get promoted above your ability levels just to get you out of the way, or you've been a nurse for a long time, it's about time you started applying for a sister's post. Or you've been a teacher for a long time, how about being a head of year? Doesn't mean to say you've necessarily been given those skills. Poor workplace relationships, bullying and harassment. Discrimination's a big thing in the UK. It could be discrimination on the grounds of your sexuality, your gender, the fact that you've got children and you want school holidays off can be problematic. You apply for a job and you're pregnant. If the employer knows that you're pregnant, they might think of all the tricks in the book not to give you that job because you're going to cost them more money. To me, this is the science of the blindingly obvious, the Quinn E model of job equality. And this was some research which was carried out across Europe. One of our universities, the University of Warwick, was involved in it. And they were looking at what does good work look like. Well, first of all, your contract of employment, your terms and conditions, your holiday pay, your sick pay, your salary. Then the quality of your employment. Is it good work? What about staff development opportunities? Can you be supported to do the job that you're doing now well, but also to do it better? Your working conditions, work-life balance, consultation and effective communication. So good management, involving staff and their representatives, which includes unions in discussions. All those things encompass what the Quinn E model of job quality looks like. And to me, that's something I could have told you 20 years ago, but now we've got the evidence. So workplace culture, Sarah's experience. I've used up all my sick pay, so I've called in dead. Well, I'll tell you a bit about Sarah. Sarah is in HR, this is a real person. She's got a long-term health condition called cystic fibrosis, which affects your lungs, and then she got pregnant. Her employer was not happy. Her employer made life really difficult for her, and the law in the UK is if you're pregnant, you are allowed to go to antenatal care during work time. And they made her do extra work to make up for the time that she was actually going to hospital. She also had cystic fibrosis, which meant that she had to have further treatment, and they made life so difficult for her. So for her, it was easier to ring in and say she was off sick than to ring in and say that she was going to an appointment, a medical appointment. So let's think about organisational investment. Occupational Health and Wellness Services, the Society of Occupational Medicine came out with a review earlier this year looking at the global evidence. And for every dollar that is invested in occupational health services of one kind or another, there is a 4 times return on that investment. Makes common sense to me then. Think about having good OH services. Within that, think about emphasising health within health and safety. Think about health and safety and risk and environmental management, having a safe organisation to work in. Opportunities for those that are staff development. Good staff, better trained to deliver better quality. So going forwards, the benefit of developing wellness strategies. Now, I hope this is going to work. If not, Google it at home and have a look. Williams Formula One experience. One of my graduates is the occupational health manager for the Formula One team, Williams F1. And what they haven't got the money to do is to invest in good cars. But please don't repeat that outside this room. So their cars are okay, but they're not as good as Ferrari and Red Bull and whatever the other teams are. But one of the things they decided they would do is improve on their pit stops. Now, for those of you that aren't into motor racing, and I only am because my husband is, so I only pick up a bit about it, but their pit stops is when they pull into like a lay-by on the F1 track, and then they change their tyres. And what they've managed to do is to get that time down to 1.78 seconds. So they can change all 4 wheels on the car in less than 2 seconds. And they did that by investing. But they invested in wellness. They didn't invest in cars, they invested in wellness, fitness, nutrition. They then looked at the task. They analysed the task and they looked at the ergonomics of it. And then they thought about teamwork. And to me, that encapsulates what a good job is. They value these people. They've made them the best they can at doing that job. They've invested in their fitness and their wellness. Now, with any luck, you'll be able to see this. If not, Google it and have a look. It's like a well-orchestrated dance. Right, there was a link in here. But I can't, oh, there it is. There. And there's another one in a minute.
The pit stop is the one time that the outside world gets to see what a team sport this is. Like a lot of things in Formula One, it's just attention to detail. Whenever we do a pit stop, we measure. How long the gun man is measure to get the wheel off. How long it takes for the wheel to come off. How long it takes for the wheel to come off and you want to go on, and then do it up again. How long it takes to drop. There's really nowhere to hide. Much like the driver, much like the driver. Everything they do, every aspect of a pit stop is measured.
These guys do not join a Formula One team to be part of the pit crew. This is almost their second job.
This is their Sunday job, yeah. So we employ them to do to build race cars for us, build and strip race cars, and travel around the world. And the pit stop is something they do while the race is going on because the team needs it. So it's very much their kind of secondary reason for existing.
Do the guys enjoy it, do you think?
Oh, yeah. They are a hugely competitive bunch of individuals, and that makes my job easier. Just last weekend, 22 people ran the track on Saturday night, on race night, after finishing their day's work of qualifying, not because we made them, but because they wanted to do it. So they understand and buy into the fact now that physical fitness, while it's not the only thing you need, it's one of the key ingredients that you have to have.
How often do you drop somebody from the pit crew?
The way I like to think of it is like a football team. You have so many players on the bench. Occasionally you change people out, people go through a bad patch or a good patch.
So how big's your squad?
Our squad would be nearly 30 people, and we require 22. So, we have 4 gunmen on a car because there's 4 wheels, but we have 2 other guys who are on the bench who are equally as capable.
How much do the drivers practice the pit stops?
A lot. The driver, you can see the marks there, he needs to stop within 10 centimetres of those marks. We consider that to target. So if he goes 30 centimetres long or to the left or to the right, that means the guys are in the wrong position, that slows the stop down.
What's the fastest you've ever recorded in practice?
1.78, and as I said earlier, we have so much data. If we take the fastest time of each corner ever achieved, we get a time of about 1.6. So we know there's a theoretical possibility to go to 1.6 because we've individually done that. So there's always something to chip away at and to aim at.
So amazing. A little bit later, if we've got time, to show you something that my student did with them at the Mexico Grand Prix, which was, I think, last weekend. It could have been the weekend before, a bit jet lagged, where they launched Movember, which is a men's health initiative. So good work should have long-term benefits so that as employees approach the end of their working lives, well, it's not the years in your life that count, it's the life that's left in your years. Now this is the one, I might need you again, here we are. Is that going to open?
Somebody's Facebook page.
Oh, wait, let me go in. It was probably off my Facebook page. It worked on my computer at home, it just doesn't want to work here.
You were logged in at home. If you'd like to log into Facebook here.
No.
Okay.
Basically what they did is that they launched Movember, and so they all had to wear funny moustaches, and they had the team in Mexico running around the Grand Prix track. Obviously there were no cars there, that would be a little bit dangerous. And the team back at base in Wanted, which is near Oxford, were doing this. They put a film together, and they even had Sir Frank Williams in the lineup. Just amazing. And that's part of what Williams are trying to do. They're trying to promote the health and welfare of their employees, as well as making a difference or not on the F1 racetrack. So some further reading then. Waddell and Burton, is work good for your health and well-being? Interesting reading, you referred to that too. Taylor, the Good Work report, excellent review. Dame Carol Black, who has been involved out here and also in the UK of promoting that good health should underpin good work. In fact, Dame Carol has made a move to get work as a health outcome on pre-registration medical and nursing degree programs, and I'm involved in helping them to set it up for doctors first and then eventually for nurses. It saddens me that in the UK, and I suspect it's the same here, that occupational health is not ever mentioned in pre-registration nurse training. And I think that's so sad, because we spend a third of our life at work. And some statistics from the HSE. And I'm sorry I can't show you the Movember event in Mexico, but I'm sure if you Googled it, you'd find something. Yeah, but another time. Okay. So thank you for listening. Any basic questions now before later? No questions. Does that mean it was terribly boring?
All right, well, let's save those up, because I'm sure people have them, and thank you for sharing that, particularly like that video. Not that I have any interest in Formula
No, I haven't either.
However, I, strangely enough, have been in a pit crew, because one of my brothers worked in a Formula 2 team, so that's certainly not as swish as that, I'm telling you now. Right, so now we change pace, and what we're going to do is a very practical exercise and very interactive. So I'm delighted to welcome Noni Byron to the front. And Noni, she's a high achiever actually. I got kind of exhausted listening to you. So you own your own business, you're a workplace rehab business in New South Wales with lots of other dimensions to that. You have a young family, and they're very interested in New Zealand and moving here. So anyone in the break that wants to encourage her, please do. You're the chair of the Workplace Engagement and Advocacy Committee as part of the Australian SSG Signatory Steering Group, and you're always looking for innovations. So I think that leads really nicely into this tool that you and I think Suzanne have developed around the good work. What is it? How do you identify it? What do you do? And so let's have a look. And you've got a practical exercise. So I hope everyone's got a pen. If
Alrighty, well I might make a start while tools and pens are in play. Whenever anyone introduces me, I wonder why I have my glasses on to cover the bags under my eyes. It sounds exhausting when you explain it that way. We just keep on going. So I guess just to introduce the Good Work tool in itself, this is something that Suzanne Jones, the Chair of the Executive Committee for the Australian SSG, has kindly put forward as a tool to be looked at today. But most importantly, what we're doing with this Good Work tool is looking at putting some further study and research behind it. So together with Monash University and Alex Colley, what we're looking at doing is developing a benchmark of what is good work across different industries and organisations. So then when we utilise the Good Work tool, organisations are actually able to then benchmark how good their work is versus the industry standard across other organisations. And I guess that's really where we want to see the Good Work tool go. So we're really excited to introduce the Good Work tool to you today, and we really want to get a flavour and feedback from you around how you feel the Good Work tool is. And certainly we're also looking at the group, anyone interested in participating in the research component around the benchmarking of what is good work. We'll provide our contact details at the end of the slides, but certainly happy for you to chat to myself and Suzanne in the break as well. So the Good Work tool, it's an Australian-based SSG resource. Certainly I would say that the tool wouldn't be here without Suzanne Jones. It's a matrix designed to assess the degree to which elements of good work exist within an organisation. So the beauty of this tool is if given across an organisation, you can look at an individual's measurement of what they feel is good work and how they feel within their organisation. So you can look at an individual, you can look at a group within an organisation and an organisation as a whole. So what's exciting about that stuff from a data perspective or information perspective is that you can have a look at particular divisions within an organisation where good work may not be happening as well as it could be, and how you can target to work with that. So the results can assist with identifying areas of success and areas for review to promote good work and health benefits. So the good news is it's a really quick questionnaire, should take 5 minutes, don't overthink it. But the idea behind it is that it will cover topics such as your current job, your experiences at work and your opinions on health and wellbeing in the workplace. What's really great about this tool, and I guess coming more from a workplace rehabilitation injury management perspective, is I think sometimes when we talk about good work, we tend to think about work health and safety or injury management only, and that's probably because of the lens that I wear in the line of work that I do. But the beauty of this tool is we're looking at more than one thing. So we're looking at engagement, so engagement of an individual in the workplace, health and safety, recovery at work, one's role, and their workplace environment. So I don't get to do much more talking because I want this to be a practical exercise that you all jump into. So you all have your Good Work tool. We all have a pen. Everyone, if there's anyone that doesn't have the tool, hands up, we'll quickly run around. You need the tool? Yeah. So return to work, recovery at work, I guess the most interchangeable terminology. So somebody returning to work post an injury or illness. So, yeah. So if you work through the questionnaire, you'll then be able to measure, I guess what we want you to do is tick whether you strongly agree, disagree, so just by the scoring here. So I'm going to be silent and let you all complete that for 5 minutes, but if anyone puts a hand up, I can run up and answer any questions. If anyone's completed early, the high likelihood that you're going to need a calculator on your phone for the scoring requirements. Unless I'm the only non-mathematician in the room, I require a calculator. So I've put the scoring instructions up here, so nice and easy for you. Right, so those who are approaching the scoring of each component, you can then rate yourself out of 100 for each of the core components. And so the closer to 100 you are, I guess we would say the better we're approaching good work within that particular section. I'll just flick back for those still scoring. All right, I might jump into some feedback that we've seen with the good work tool thus far in some measurements. So we conducted a round table as part of the SS Health Benefits of Good Work SSG in September of this year with some large organisations across quite a few industries in Australia. And what was interesting that came out of the good work tool anecdotally, everyone was a little bit different in their feedback, but certainly what it was able to do was open up certain organisations' eyes to areas that they needed to focus on. So one organisation in particular, which was more of a transportation-based industry, indicated that they felt that the roles within their organisation may create a lack of clarity at times, and so the role and job design came up as conversations of, looking at their scoring wasn't as high as those other areas. So that was something they were going to go and have a look at back in their workplace. Another organisation indicated that engagement was the first thing they needed to work on. So they had particular divisions in their workforce that weren't highly engaged. And so they were then going to go back and look at that. And I guess what this tool does is it helps to segment each of those different components and helps to focus a little bit on areas or help to prioritise areas that your organisation may need to look at. I'd be really keen to hear from anyone in the room around any obvious trends that came out for them. Doesn't need to be anything too specific, but were there any components where you felt you scored lower than others or higher than others? Any surprises in what you found? Yep, and that's, I guess, part of this today too, is that we would like to hear that feedback so that we can further continue to work on the wording of that. And I guess further to inviting those who are interested to participate in the research component behind it as well. So open to all feedback around that. And you're right, it is open to the interpretation of the individual completing the survey as well and what your definition of physical or psychological harm is. Yeah, breaking it out. Yeah. Yeah. Any trends? Anything you think you could go back to the workplace and have a bit of a look at? Yeah, and that's the whole idea behind it, right? So the irony being, the owner of my company, I completed this tool. I was going to score high in certain areas, right? So if I don't know what my role is, then we're in trouble. And if I'm not looking at, I guess, taking care of my staff and rating in that way. But I guess the whole idea is you can then look at an individual, a group, or an entire organisation, and you're absolutely going to get different responses. But that's healthy, I think, too, because that can help delineate between maybe what HR, human resources are feeling versus management versus team members as well. So I think that that's the beauty of the tool, to really look at it from that perspective. And perhaps even support an individual who's not feeling particularly happy as well. So I encourage all of you to have a conversation with us in the break. If you're interested in participating in the research component behind that, to look at benchmarking what is good work, really keen to hear from you. And thank you. Thank you for... Oh, yep. Yep, I think if you're interested, I guess from today, it's not to be, I guess it's one of those tools that we're asking you not to take away and replicate and utilise in an open space. But if you're, I guess the whole idea is that what we're going to be doing is refining the tool further, working with Monash University to then put more research behind that, and then it be more of a publicly accessible tool. So yeah, you're free to leave the tool here. You can take it with you, but we're asking you not to, I guess, utilise it yet, but be part of the research behind it if you're interested as well.
Well, I'm in, so you can count my organisation in, and I'm fortunate in the sense that I have a range of roles underneath the organisation. So as I said before, it's social services, so we have everything from Lifeline to Shine, which is domestic violence, family workers, which are social workers in schools, parenting in prison, as well as Enliven, which is home-based support carers. So when you come back to what Anne talked about before, that one of the areas is about caring for the carers, I think, I'm absolutely in for this. And having a background in HR, we've done parts of it. We've done engagement surveys, but they've not gone far enough to say the composition of all of those things is actually the construct of good work. So thank you so much, Noni, for sharing this with us. And as she said, come on up here in the break or out there and put your names forward to be part of that research with Alex at Monash University. So we are taking a break. Now, this is a really whiz-bang kind of auditorium, as you can tell, and using assistive or artificial intelligence, it's been recorded and it's going to come back on at exactly 3:00. So we need to be in here because the speaker will be starting at 3 o'clock. So I invite you to come outside, and the afternoon tea is with AIA, I think, is the sponsor. Yep. So thank you, AIA. The afternoon tea's up the top. As I said, the facilities are that way. And we'll see you at 2:58 in this room. Thank you.